Michael Epstein here from Postpilot. Michael, welcome to the AICX Virtual Summit. Glad to have you here.
It's like to be here, Brian. Thanks.
Nice. Well, we were talking a little bit beforehand, but we're just going to dive right in. I guess first and foremost, Michael, can you give us a little background of yourself? I think what was interesting to me was the amount of years of experience you have in D2C.
Yeah, I am an old timer. I started my first e-commerce brand in 2000. Like Shopify didn't exist. Google didn't. Google AdWords didn't exist. Like none of this existed. And yeah, sold it in 2013 to private equity and got into private equity operating roles with a number of portfolio companies for a while after that. And then Postpilot. Here I am.
All right. Sorry, one question.
Yeah.
Customer acquisition at that time compared to a customer acquisition now, was it easier? Do you think is it easier to acquire customers back then before Google Ads, or is it now so much easier with so many different channels?
It was different. It was different. It was just so many things that you see now are sort of have their genesis from things that you were doing before, but they weren't. You didn't know what they were called at the time. So just as an example, we blew up by partnering with bloggers in specific categories who reviewed our products and talked about our products on their blogs. These were like, old school blogs.
Yeah.
Where people had websites around specific topics, which would now be called like influencer marketing and and things like that. So it was different in that you didn't have as many ways to get your name out, but there also wasn't nearly the same level of competition. So it was just very different.
What goes around comes around. It's just basically you're saying they just renamed everything, and now here we are.
One way or another, they just evolve. They just keep evolving.
And now you are the co-founder of Postpilot. And you told me just in 4 years ago. So tell us a little bit about Postpilot, Michael.
Sure. So Postpilot's a direct mail platform that natively integrates with Shopify, Klaviyo, your e-com tech stack, and makes sending direct mail as easy as like email or Facebook campaigns. And really, the genesis of Postpilot was we had used direct mail successfully as a channel throughout my career, working with different portfolio companies and different brands, but it was just the stereotypical clunky experience of a bunch of spreadsheets and finding a printer and then a bunch more spreadsheets to try and figure out if it ROI'd for you. And it just sucked. So the thesis was like, somebody needs to build Klaviyo for direct mail. And so that's what we set out to do. And that's what we did. And then it really started out as more of a retention platform. Like, you're sending campaigns to existing customers, but over time, we've really evolved it to a full funnel platform that helps with acquisition as well.
When you say Klaviyo for direct mail, can you go deeper into like what about Klaviyo outside of they do email and SMS that you are bringing into Postpilot?
Sure. So you think of your email program, you think of Klaviyo or SendLane or these other email service providers, and you're creating segments. You're defining a segment of customers, like I want everybody that has bought from me more than once and not in the last 90 days. And you can send campaigns to those, one-off campaigns to those customers by, in your ESP, you're sending these email blasts. Think of like newsletter type announcements like new product launch or sale announcement or things like that. And then you're also creating automated flows in your email service provider. So triggered automations, think your win-back campaigns, your abandoned cart campaigns, your cross-sell campaigns. When somebody makes their 5th purchase, you want to send them a thank you message. You can do all of that with Postpilot the same way you would with an email. With email, we're literally triggering individually personalized cards to go out to people based on their behavior in real time. So, Brian, you buy a 60-day supply of supplements. You go 65 days without placing another order. We tried emailing you to tell you it's time for refill. You haven't come back. On day 65, trigger a card that says, hey, Brian, it's time for a refill. Get back on track. Here's 10% off your order if you come back now. And we send you that card in the mail.
So this is very aligned with a previous conversation that I've had about first party data, second party data, third party data. And tell me if I'm right or wrong on this, but if you look at just direct mail, I feel like it started with a lot of third party data of like, okay, like try to send to people that you think, like I work with yourself and saying, all right, try to find my target market and send this stuff out. And now I think the table has turned where it's all about zero party data, first party data, and utilizing as much of that in all of your direct mail. Is that, do I have that right? Would you kind
So
of explain that the same way?
sure. So it's actually both. So when
Okay.
you think about on the retention side and even on the retargeting side, it's using a lot of that zero party data. It's using your existing customers and transactional data to target people based on their purchase behavior. Or if you're thinking about retargeting type campaigns, we can actually take an email address from somebody that subscribed to your list but never bought anything from you, so you don't have
Hmm.
their postal address. Match that to a postal address and retarget them with a card. We can match anonymous site visitors to a postal address and retarget those folks with a card. But the what you're talking about is really on the acquisition side, and
Hmm.
knowing that this is more of like an AI sort of machine learning summit that we're in right now. This is where you start to really be able to apply a lot of that. There's a couple ways that you can apply it to the channel, but in prospecting, that's a key way because we're building lookalike audiences the same way that like Facebook is using AI machine learning to build lookalike audiences for Facebook cold prospecting.
Hmm.
Typically in the past, you've relied on kind of like superficial attributes to target people. I just want all females 25 to 49 in these zip codes to get a card. Like that's not a great idea. But what we're doing for brands is we have thousands of different attributes across hundreds of millions of US consumers, and we can take your first party or zero party data and use that to build lookalike models and then model it against these large consumer data sets that have thousands of different attributes. So we're looking at things like uh, okay, yes, you might be a female 25 to 49, but and you make this household income, and we know that you have kids that are between ages
Hmm.
2 to 5, and we know that you shop in Target twice a month, and we know that you buy meat jerky products from Target, and you buy this type of beer, and you drive this kind of car, and you are an avid outdoors person, and you are a health enthusiast, and you have a Disney Plus subscription. Like there's literally thousands of attributes. And this is where, again, that sort of AI
Wow.
machine learning starts to really get interesting because we can model your first party data against all of these attributes and find people that look very much like your core customer. Super useful on the cold acquisition side.
So it sounds to me like where the AI is super impactful is just that you are thinking about so many different attributes and have the availability to look at so many different attributes that you kind of need an AI tool to better understand that. Do I have that right?
Exactly. There'd be no way to like model create these models that factor in all of these thousands of different attributes against huge data sets of customers without that type of technology. It'd be different if you were just saying, I just want to target all females in this zip code.
Yeah. So then, if I'm thinking about this right, like it's a formula of the TAM and making sure the TAM is right on, and the message and the personalization of the message and making sure that is right on. Is it like almost a 50-50 split of like, listen, you have to give as much attention to the the target, the TAM, as much as you is about the message, or would you say one comes first and then the next?
Yeah, I think it's what we really advise brands is you should really have a well-defined customer. So think similar to Facebook, there's a lot of correlation to like how Facebook does acquisition and prospecting audiences. Like if your product is super generic and your
Mm-hmm.
TAM is everyone in the world, that's actually not a good fit for these types of technologies where they want to be able to identify what are the distinct attributes that makes
Yeah.
your customer. There's an example. This isn't quite like AI based, but as a good example of this, we work with a baby clothing brand, and they want to target expectant moms in their third trimester. like we actually know that information based on due dates that is
Mm-hmm.
available to us from tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of expectant mothers. We can back into like their due date and where they are in their pregnancy. But that is a very specific attribute
Wow.
that you want to ensure is present, because you could look like an expectant mom, but if you aren't an expected mom, that that person is like not relevant to you in any way. So you want to make sure that certain attributes that are really important to you as a brand can be identified, so that we can really zero in on those distinct things that make your customer really relevant to your business.
Hmm.
Versus
Is there a line? Is there a line between like personalization and then intrusiveness? Like, do you talk through that with certain clients? Does that come up at all, or no?
Yeah, the interesting thing is people do ask that, and direct mail tends to have like, it's, you don't get like the cringe factor that you do if you get like like a retargeting ad or even an email from a brand, particularly that you don't know or haven't done business with, because people have gotten cold like catalogs and cold direct mail pieces from companies for like all of their existence. So it's actually, we actually don't hear that really ever, in that people actually like receiving highly relevant direct mail. They perceive it more like a gift than an interruption, like a digital
Yeah.
ad or an email. And so, no, people actually respond to it really well. And you don't get that sort of, yeah, like stalker factor that sometimes people feel when they're getting like a super personalized retargeting ad, after they visited a site, or
Yeah.
after they like told Alexa they're interested in something.
Well, really quick story. Like personalization is vastly improving, and I know that for a fact just because I look at the holiday like the Amazon and all these different toy stores, the magazines, and all the stuff that I'm getting now. And it used to be I got two kids, and it used to be like they'd circle a couple things that they want, and now they're circling every single toy that's on the page because it's very highly relevant, and it's clear that they've learned exactly what my kids actually would enjoy and stuff like that. And so like that personalization is getting to a point where it's right on. So let me kind of take the next step, which is that I know you were talking about Klaviyo integration, Shopify integration. So someone that is new to this technology like myself, and then maybe some merchants that are listening, how do you integrate with something like Shopify as an example in the e-commerce platforms, and how is that fruitful for the merchant at the end of the day?
Yeah, great question. So super simple. We have a Shopify app. You install it with one click, the same way you install other Shopify apps. And once it's installed, like, we can then create these segments, these audience segments, the same way you would create them like in an email platform, uh, or or your SMS platform, or
Yeah.
anywhere where you would sort of segment your audience that way. And then also, because of that integration, you can track performance of those campaigns in real-time dashboard. This isn't like the old school way of direct mail of, again, 60 days after a campaign goes out, you're trying to put a bunch of spreadsheets together to figure out who of these people do I see in my customer database. We are we have a real-time dashboard because we're integrated with Shopify. We know when a customer receives the card. We know if they go on to make a subsequent purchase. We know if they use a coupon code on the card, and we attribute that back in real time in the dashboard for you.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that I did not know that you're able to do that. Oh, wow, that's very tightly targeted, and I'm sure the merchants then. I mean, that's got to be enlightening for the merchants to have an understanding of like, okay, here's actually the results coming from these campaigns.
It really is game changing. It really has
Yeah.
opened up this new growth channel to brands that historically would have never known where to begin, and also just don't. It never felt familiar. It was just so different from how you would execute the types of campaigns that brands were used to, like a Facebook campaign, like an email campaign.
Yeah.
So we've really made it feel very familiar and easy.
Now, do you have clients that most of this conversation has been centered around acquisition, obviously retention and transactions, right? Getting something to like come to the website again and make that transaction. have you dealt with clients or even refer or recommended to clients that like, well, like there are other messages that you can utilize, or these could just be another touch point in the customer journey? And what I'm thinking about is just like the celebration of customers is a common theme I hear. Do
Totally.
you have those conversations with merchants that utilize this not just for that transaction, but just to continue the relationship?
Yeah, great question. So, yes, and in a number of ways. Interestingly, I just heard from a customer this morning who was talking about how one of her best customers had just gotten her Black Friday card from us and called in to say, "Thank you so much for thinking of me and sending me this card," which we hear not
Mm.
infrequently. People feel like it's this tangible thing coming from a brand, and that does create a different type of relationship, and it's a different level of engagement with a brand than just sending them an email or sort of a digital touch point. But the other things that we can do, to your point around celebrations, we can actually match your customers to their birthdays. We have
Mm.
the ability to take your customer list, and even if you've never collected their birthday, like through a form or something else, we can actually match that for you. And then we can send them birthday cards
Yeah.
that are personalized. And it's just like a great touch point from a brand. And often brands will include something like, and here's a gift from us, take $20 off your next purchase. And they work super well from an ROI perspective, but they're also great from a general, just how many people are sending you like a birthday card in the mail?
I know.
Oh, very few. And so when it comes from a brand, you remember who sent that to you. You remember that brand. And then we also have handwriting technology, which allows you to robotic that can actually hold a pen and paper and writes with like all the nuance of a human hand on paper, and can write like a handwritten card to these folks, whether it's a birthday card or a VIP thank you card. You just made your fifth purchase from us, or you just spent over $1,000 total with us. So I want to trigger a card that goes out from my founder that's like, just want to say thank you so much for being such a loyal customer. We appreciate you. And just making them feel seen like that and getting a handwritten note, to your point, it's a really memorable touch point with a brand. And that's what we're all really competing for at the end of the day, right? It's like attention and creating a
Yes.
memorable experience with our customers so that we're not having to constantly pay to get in front of them again and reacquire them all the time.
I mean, you nailed it. Like, I just want to stop right there because at this point, and I'm just sharing conversations that I've had with several different merchants. Like, looking outside right now, there's a difficult, we still have a difficult economy, and there's just a lot of hardships going on around the world at this point. And if you look back, just at the last 10 or 15 or 20 emails in your personal inbox, right? I guarantee you, there's not going to be many that are celebrating you or things that are like, hey, like nice work or whatever it is that you're celebrating. It's mostly about like, hey, getting someone to buy something. And so I do think that there is such an opportunity that's like just stop and like, can you figure out ways to celebrate your customers through a channel like direct mail, which is highly unique, because those are what you just said, Michael, memorable moments that make a difference in the customer journey.
You're absolutely right.
So okay, let's really quickly, like we'll go into the next stage, which is, um, I know we're talking about like current state, and current state to me is also future state because these are things that are still brand new to the ecosystem. But are there things that you are working towards, or you just see a lot of innovation outside of what you're working on that you get excited about, specifically around customer experience and AI? And is there anything even with Postpilot that you're looking forward to when it comes to some next developments in this AI space?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I can say is that we are very interested in AI and how that plays a role in what we're doing and makes things even more personalized and more timely. So the fact that we have all this transactional data, uh, we can use AI to be even more precise around the timing of when certain messages are triggered and what
Mm-hmm.
messages are most relevant to somebody at any given time. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there that we're excited to continue to tap in terms of, and just getting even more precise. And you're seeing it with various platforms in terms of their predictive analytics and predictive triggering around certain events. I think that that's a place where this gets really exciting.
Well, I would also say, well, triggering is probably one of them, right? Like where right now it's humans making that decision, obviously, of when to send something. But I could see in the future utilizing AI, having all these moments, the customer, all this data, and say when is the right time to
Exactly.
send this message out, right?
As CDPs continue to become, more
Yeah,
common and more prevalent, I think that's where a lot of this is going, is like being able to be more precise and more personalized with what message at what time and what channel to what person. And I think we're excited for what that opens up for us.
that's awesome. Well, right there, we'll end it, Michael. I appreciate all your time on this and learning a lot more about Postpilot and kind of the future of what's to come. But again, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for inviting me, Brian. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks, all.